Hi, my name is Georgii Perepechko, and today I want to talk to you about the Boy Scout role in the age of AI. I work as a staff engineer at SignalOcean. We do maritime shipping intelligence, so huge ships carrying humongous amount of cargo, generating impossible amounts of data. And we try to analyze this and help our clients to have all the information they need to make correct decisions. First of all, I think it's undeniable that we do live nowadays in the age of AI. About 85% of developers regularly use AI tools for coding and development. Mostly they use this for creating code, either by assisting them in the editor, so it could be as small as autocomplete, and to using AI coding agents that actually do write majority of the code themselves, and then we act mostly as a code reviewers. So at the same time, even though we know that about 40%, well, probably over 40% of our code is AI generated or at least AI assisted, only 28% of devs actually are sure of the AI code, according to recent surveys. So what does this mean? Devs are really critical of the tools they use. Devs are not sure that the tools they use can be trusted. And that's understandable because when talking about AI, we usually measure success of it by either binary, it works, it doesn't work, or by the amount of code generated. So we optimize for code generation, not stuff like architectural integrity and basically maintainability. This means that we generate code that looks very much like it would work but actually doesn't, or code that would work but it also is quite brittle and hard to maintain. And obviously, as with all things AI, when you generate something, it goes into context. When you generate something new, we read the same context, and so if we generate crappy code in the beginning, every iteration just makes it harder and harder to get to the place when we're actually generating something good. So what is the Boy Scout role? Well, classically it's just a role of literal Boy Scouts that should leave campground cleaner than they found it. Which means you basically every time you have to improve environment, no matter if you were the one who messed something up or it was someone else. I think the first person to talk about this in context of programming was Uncle Bob, basically the person who created the clean code book that we all either have read or tell others we have read. And he referred to it in a sense that we want to keep the code base cleaner than we actually checked it out. Which means you don't only keep the code you write clean, you actually try to improve the general state of the code around you. And today it's more and more important just because we generate lots of code and we rely on tools that generate code for us. So what it is just basically small improvements, gradual, very step-by-step minor things that everyone can do. What it's not is like global rewrites, refactoring sprints, just spending lots and lots of time turning our code base into something palatable. I don't want to talk about each type of AI slop that very kind people, I think mostly on Reddit, categorized for us. But I would say that most of the problems we encounter is either AI not thinking about edge cases, which makes sense because even we devs don't always think about edge cases. And basically AI has no way to verify something. Most AIs would rather do some sort of version of a code than ask a question. Thankfully, lots of devs don't have exactly the same problem. The other I think a huge problem is complexity. So that's not necessarily like complexity of the code in terms of nested ifs or something similar. It's basically just a mental overhead. Sometimes AI tend to make simple things difficult, or try to make difficult things very simple, which creates like a bunch of workarounds that they have to add, and that just becomes a giant mental overhead for developers and other AIs that work on the same code base. And this leads to poor maintainability, because we know that you can generate like amazing zero-shot prompt, and AI will generate beautiful app. And I think I've been in enough hackathons to know that people are very excited about those, and for a good reason. Lots of apps are looking great, and we're very happy with the result at the beginning of the hackathon, and then like a couple of days later we're like, oh, I had to rewrite everything from scratch literally, just because it was not maintainable. I could not understand how the code worked. I cannot do certain stuff with this implementation and so on. So that's obviously a huge drawback of the approach of just one-shotting something and hoping it just does what you expect. And obviously for businesses it just translates into a huge price tag and time waste. I think that happens exactly the same way as when you just have devs who are not too good at writing code, or don't know the subject matter enough, and AIs are often ending up in basically the same position as those devs. So knowing all that, how can we actually improve? Well, I would say that the first step, and that's probably something you heard lots of times before, but it's still the most important step, is just providing context. And it takes, I think, two forms. First one is prompt level context, and second one is memory files. When we talk about prompts, and it can be just as simple as basically talking to ChatGPT online, it doesn't have to be like Claude Code or some other fancy development tool. The main rule is just being specific. You don't want to say, hey, create a button component. You want to go and explain what exactly the button should be, what libraries should be used, what best practices should be used, how accessible something is, what's your design system, and so on and so on. We'll talk more about how to not do this every single time, but yeah, definitely being specific beats being vague in general every time, especially as the project grows in complexity. A second one is basically very simple idea: give examples. If you know there's some code in your code base that you like and you want AI to generate something similar, just point to this file and say, can you do something like this with this specific changes to it? That improved my life incredibly. I think not a lot of people are using this. Someone is considering it basically cheating, because you're just telling AI to not be creative, but we want AI not to be creative, we want AI to be predictable when we're working on something actually production level. And another one is defining a role. So if you need something specific from AI, be sure to explain what exactly you want, what's the position AI should review your code from, and so on. So if you want security engineer input, you ask AI to be security engineer. If you want someone to be a CSS expert, you want to tell AI to be a CSS expert. I don't think vague things like you are a software engineer with 20 years of experience are that helpful, because they're not limiting enough. They're not actually helping in terms of narrowing the scope. I've seen someone use prompt of you're a junior engineer and your job depends on it, and that actually ended up bringing some cool results in terms of very documented, very careful, very explainable code. So that might actually be better than asking your AI to behave like a senior engineer. In terms of context files, we know that Claude Code, Gemini, even like models, I'm struggling to remember the Cursor latest model. I think it was Cheetah at some point, and then they renamed it. Never mind. But basically, most of agents now support some sort of memory files, which you just basically put at the root of your project, and then you usually can ask the agent itself to generate this file, but you should definitely check it, verify it, and keep it as small as possible. I think the recommendation by Claude team is under 500 lines, and that means that you just want to put things that is absolutely essential for your project there. You don't want to go like, I want all buttons that are located in model to be. No, you want to be as general as possible. So you want to tell AI about what scripts it can run, what's the general structure of repository, what sort of technology stack you use, and so on. You don't want to go into nitty-gritties. And for nitty-gritties, you can use stuff like Claude Skills, which is basically aimed to make every thing you do more granular, more specific, so you don't load this context with your request every time. After talking about context, I think the next very basic idea is probably formatting and linting. I think we all tend to think about these things as something that helps devs in the first place, but that's actually hugely beneficial for AIs because they get automated output. They can actually rerun this stuff. So yeah, using Prettier removes lots of mental overhead. You can think of Prettier as something that is not making all the decisions you would like, but the huge thing that it brings is uniformity, and uniform project is way better than lots of beautiful but absolutely differently formatted pieces of code. Same goes for linting. So we want to have some rules basically just to catch stupid mistakes that AI can easily see after implementing a feature, and then improve upon this, iterate upon this without bothering you, asking or telling you that everything's done. We want to verify it automatically. And speaking of that, we want to figure out a way when to ask AI to actually check this stuff, or when to check this stuff ourselves. So I don't think there is any point to write tests or have some linting rules if you are not actually running those automatically. And what does automatically mean? I think one of the use cases that I've seen a lot is basically AI is running those tests as post request hooks, which is great, but also not very helpful, because at this point AI is like, hey, I've done my work, 20 errors found. That's not very helpful if you have to basically force AI to fix them later. So you want to either do this as a step within the process, so your AI agent should call those scripts, and you should have this in your memory file, for example, or you want to have this at the level of PRs, so at the level of commits, when you basically submit the code and figure out, oh, okay, there are this, and that problems, I can fix them now. And obviously you should have the same thing on CI/CD pipeline, because you don't want to trust developers, AIs, anyone to actually run these things, to not do commit no verify, to skip some steps and so on. You want to have one source of truth, one blocker, so your production is unaffected by someone feeling like they know better. Next, we move to the tests. Test loop is actually something that devs nowadays have very polar sort of opinions. Some believe that no test code should ever be written by AI, because if we let AIs verify themselves, we're basically not checking the code. And the other, I would say, majority of developers are saying, yay, no more writing tests, that's amazing, let's just let AI do this. And the truth is, I think both categories are right. Writing tests is usually tedious and not fun. So what I would do is just let AI come up with a draft of the test plan, then go through it, check it, not even necessarily like have it written as code, just maybe have certain test cases, change the list, add some test cases to verify the edge cases, ensure that expects are sensible, and then just generate tests based on this, and then check those tests, obviously, because you never want to trust AI to just come up with some way of verifying its own work. And that also brings us to the dreaded test-driven development, which is basically writing tests first and then implementing the feature. I think that's a great thing for actual AI-generated code, because otherwise AIs tend to change basically build the tests around the implementation, not the other way around. And we usually want AIs to build something and not change the conditions they're building for. So if we generate tests first, then ensure that they are not touched during the process later. We can ensure that our app is sustainable, and that's I think that's probably the best argument for test-driven development I've heard so far. And especially for end-to-end tests, there are lots of cool tools that allow you to basically click a couple of buttons and then just generate a suite of tests, rather. The problem with this is those tests are usually brittle. They rely on random sleeps, they rely on CSS selectors, and so on. It's a great starting point as usual, but you definitely want to go and harden every one of those tests to make sure that they are actually running in the way you want them to run. Next, I want to talk a bit about refactoring loop. I think it's basically the most difficult change in mindset I've encountered using AI. And the main thing is, at least as individual contributor, I like writing code. I don't like directing people. I don't like managing processes and so on. But when working with AIs, we actually have to put lots of hats on. We have to usually start as an architect or start even as a manager who describes the problem, goes into technical details, then listens to suggestions by AI, and that's actually one of the steps that lots of people either skip or handle in one of two ways. So they either restart, so they either chat with AI making some suggestions, or just accept its result of its work as is. I think one thing that people do not use enough is just starting from scratch with new knowledge, because we don't want to basically put lots of rubbish in the context. So restarting the process is a great approach to this. And then obviously you have to run the test, you have to double check that everything works exactly as it's supposed to, you have to review the code, your team has to review the code, so code review processes are exactly what they are. And in the end, like those sort of iteration on architecture, iteration on the final implementation is what makes the code maintainable, readable, and usable in the actual production project. Last thing I want to talk about you is documentation. There are now basically two main approaches, and more and more AI tools arrive and tell us, don't care about documentation. It will be just generated automatically. It will be synced on every change. You would be able to chat with it, and that's all great, and I really like this approach, but usually that does not at all remove the need for manual documentation, because only people are great at understanding like 20 different decisions made along the process, just because AI is usually don't have enough data about this. So if some manager changed his opinion on something, or some new data have come out that affected your app, AI would not have any context for it, and so manual docs are still very much important. I am very much in favor of having manual docs as code, so as markdown files, for example, under Git, so documentation is also reviewed, documentation is also like versioned, so you can always check, why did this line change, and pinpoint exactly moment and reasoning for this. And finally, on documentation, I want to say that obviously lots of documentation can be generated without AI input. Basically, you can write lots of docs by just creating storybook files for the front-end part of the app. You can have end-to-end tests running over your storybook. You can have like a good visibility on what props are available, of what changes visually. That can be a great thing to use with MCPs like Playwright MCP, so agent can verify its work. And on the backend side of things, obviously OpenAI and Swagger or like Postman collections, they can be generated just by pointing to your OpenAPI spec, and this results in an easy way for people to actually run test requests, have a good understanding of what's going on. So I think that's about all I wanted to talk to you about today. I want to say that AI is first and foremost a great amplifier if you are disciplined and if you keep your code base clean. It's amplifier of value. If you are undisciplined, if your code base is a mess to begin with, it's mostly an amplifier of technical debt, problems, and basically business being unhappy with your development. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.